Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Living Well. I am joined by Hector, who is definitely living his best life. But I'm also joined this evening by Jillian Lavender, the founder of the London Meditation Centre. And we're going to be talking about the many, many benefits from a daily meditation practice. Curious to know how many of you already have a meditation practice or are contemplating one. Now I see some familiar faces. Good evening, Karen. Lovely of you to join us. And let me just see if I can add Jillian in. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Crazy day, but good. Actually quite glad of this. I knew that half an hour with you, despite the day, would actually be the perfect way. Oh, got a cat here. To unwind. How are you? How was your day?
Oh, it's very busy. Very, very
Are you
busy. Lots of
in London?
teaching. I'm in London. I'm teaching, and we've got our Ayurvedic doctor here visiting from India.
Yeah,
So we've got lots going on.
so
So
interesting.
yeah. So it's one of those back-to-back ones. But it's good. Yeah.
Well, thank you for making the time. And I was actually going back through my emails. I was trying to remember exactly when it was that I came to you to do my Vedic meditation course. It was actually January 2022. So I think we're still in the thick of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember I'd done a lot of reading around you, and my friend Emma Guns had already booked in to come on the course. And I thought, well, I've been thinking about doing this properly. Maybe there's space, and there was one place left. And talk about life changing. So for those of you who don't know who Jillian is, and don't know much about Vedic meditation, which is a type of practice that Jillian and her partner Michael teach. For me, it was transformative. You practiced and taught meditation for nearly 2 decades, maybe
Yeah,
longer. Is that
yeah,
right?
yes. I think I'm 21 years now of teaching. I've been practicing for a bit longer. So I learned probably about 28 years ago, but I've been
Okay.
teaching for over 2 decades now. Yeah, yeah.
Incredible. How many people do you think you have trained at this point?
Whoa, I've lost count. I mean, I remember when I first started teaching, I thought, oh, I'm going to have a nice little book and I'm going to write everybody's names down, and then that went out the window after a few months. Thousands. I've kind of lost count. So we have a very big community here in London where we're based, and then we also teach in New York as well. So and people coming in from Europe all over. So it's something that really, I think people, they dance around it for a long time. They might have tried different things, and then like you
Guilty, yeah.
get to, yeah, and then you get to a point you're like, no, wait a minute, I've seen the universe is giving me this message so many times in different ways, and I see that this celebrity does it, or I read about this, here, and I'm like, okay, I've got to get this meditation thing going. So yeah, it's busy.
And you stepped away from a career in publishing into this very different space. So I'm always curious, what was it that made you want to leave what you've been doing, presumably very successfully, and take such a departure in terms of your career path? What compelled you to do that, Jillian?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was on one level doing well in my corporate career, and that had all of the things that come with that. And on another level, I was becoming increasingly disinterested in it. It was sort of like that, literally that thing of waking up in the morning and I'm like, oh,
Yes.
this is not feeling charming. And there were parts of it that I did enjoy. I loved working with my team. I had people all over the world, different countries that I had teams in. That part I liked, but some of the other stuff I had sort of felt that I'd been done with that. So I think it was partly aversion that, I didn't want to do some of that anymore. And then just a sense, and actually a sense of I'm not quite knowing what I wanted to do. And, there's that principle in life, when you create a vacuum, nature will fill it. And I just knew that I had to kind of stop doing what I was doing and create some space to let's see what comes in. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to quit my job and become a Vedic meditation teacher. It was quit my job and let's see. And it was a real moment of stepping into the unknown. And from that, I ended up training to be a Vedic meditation teacher and came back to London in 2003 and started teaching. So quite a departure, but it was that moment of, I don't want to do that. I'm willing to step into the unknown. Let's see.
And where did you learn?
I learned in Arizona, in Flagstaff, Arizona, up in it's sort of like a sky island up above the deserts and not far from the Grand Canyon. It's the most stunning place. And my
Yes,
teacher,
I've driven through Flagstaff. That's
yeah,
really,
it's like
yeah,
on
yeah.
Route 66, that whole thing. So yeah, it's a really cool place. And my teacher, who I'd learned from in Sydney, Australia, had moved back to the States. He's American, and he had based himself there, and he said, come and spend some time. And I didn't quite know how long. I ended up being there for just about a year and a half, training to be a teacher. So it was, again, huge change. Like, I'd been living my life, lots of people engaged, busy. And there I was in this cottage on his property, training to be a meditation teacher. It was like a big change. And yeah, just a sense of this. I wanted to do something that I knew was going to make a difference. And I knew what a difference it had made to me. I didn't know many people who were meditating. I was a bit of felt like a bit of an electron spinning out there on my own, but I knew what it was doing for me, and I knew that there was a need out there. And I thought, you know what, I think, I can communicate this in a way that is relatable, because I've been through all the stuff that everybody's experiencing. I've had the burnout. I've been stressed. I've worn myself out. So, I could relate in that way.
Mm. So perhaps for people who, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who've joined who are, looking to make the change, looking to introduce a practice into their everyday life, what would you say are the most compelling reasons to do so? Like, what does it do for you? I'll happily share what it does for me, but what does it do for you? Because you still practice every day,
Every day.
twice a day, yes?
Yeah, and that's what we recommend. That's the recommended daily dose, is twice a day. Meditate in the morning. That sets you up for the day. Late afternoon, early evening, sit down and meditate. And, you can do that on the train or on a plane or anywhere. So it's very portable, and you can fit that into a busy life. When I first started meditating, I really noticed a change in my energy levels. I had been sleeping okay, but I would always wake up feeling exhausted. And once I started meditating, that really changed for me. I ended up sleeping less, probably, but feeling more energetic. And I had been a bit of a worrier. I had a lot on my plate. I'd been thrown in the deep end with work. I was in my 20s. I was just feeling overwhelmed, to be really honest about it. And once I learned to meditate, it was less of the overwhelm. I still had a lot on my plate, but my response to those demands was very different. I just felt less anxious, more calm, more grounded. And other people were noticing that. It was interesting. They were kind of reflecting that back to me. And so that kind of continued. I think one of the things now, if I reflect on what is one of the most important things for me from meditation, is the ability to trust myself. And I think in the old days, I would have been very much influenced by what somebody else thought, or what I thought they thought, or what my mum thought, or, whatever. And that sense of actually being able to tune into, well, what feels right for me in this moment, and trust that gut feel, and really be able to act on that intuitive sense, rather than trying to work it all out in my head, the mental gymnastics of that, which was just exhausting. And you never get it right, no matter how good your intellect is. You have to go deeper, and you have to be able to have a sense of what feels right in the moment. And that's the thing that time and again I come back to as a huge change for me, because from that, you make better decisions. From that, you feel more confident. You stand up for yourself. You know when to be quiet. It just, everything fits into place.
So you feel like you are more your intuition is coming through more clearly? There's a better connection between your body and your
Absolutely.
mind, presumably.
Absolutely. And I
Mm.
think, that's not something that we really get taught or we
Mm.
get, rewarded for. Certainly in my business career, it was analyze the numbers or evaluate these trends or look at, and all of that has its place. But, when somebody walks in the door and I was, making a decision, do I recruit this person or not? Or, you know, you have to trust something deeper. There's something more subtle. There's a level of knowledge there that if you can settle down and be grounded and have that ability to tune in to that, it's a very valuable decision making level. And I think that that gets missed a lot, and we try and work everything out in our head and it's exhausting. All you end up doing is just spinning the wheels and thinking too much, and everybody is thinking too much.
I mean, for sure. I mean, I think that's probably, I'm historically always been an overthinker, but that first year of the pandemic was the worst year of my life. And so many things happened, so much went wrong with my body. And I think for me, meditation was an attempt to try to take some control back of my ever spinning mind, which inevitably led on to insomnia. And I'd say that overthinking, anxiety, and insomnia are probably the biggest complaints outside of skin health when I talk to my female patients, particularly those in their 40s. And I guess I find myself giving the advice, the one thing sounds like you need is the one thing that made such a big difference to me. And that is being able to find the time, because for these multitasking busy women who've got kids and jobs
Yeah.
and husbands and all the rest of it,
Yeah.
it feels like, they're right down at the bottom of the list in terms of prioritizing, and putting the oxygen on themselves. But in fact, it's the very thing that, like you said, it would allow everything else just to settle into place better and
Yeah.
more effectively. So it's sort of that moment of putting yourself first. It's not selfishness, it's self-preservation, really.
Yeah.
Um,
I always say it's the most generous thing that you can do, because if you're able to turn up and be fully present and to be energized and accessing
yes.
your full mental potential and to be grounded and in the moment, then you're bringing to whatever situation you go into something that's valuable. If you go into every situation and you're worn out and you're stressed out and you're wound up and you're scattered and you just feel flat and down, and maybe even a little bit resentful because everything's about everybody else, and then you're not going to be bringing to whatever those interactions are anything that's kind of going to be helpful in the long term. So meditation is good for you. We can talk about that. The science behind it is very clear, and it is one of the most valuable things you can do for the people around you. And I encounter a lot of busy people, oh gee, I don't have time to meditate. That sounds like a huge indulgence. But I'm like, well, what are you doing with your time? Because you get 20 minutes and then that 20 minutes is gone and you don't get it back. So how we invest our time and then what's the return on that investment? If I can sit down like I'm going to do after this, and I'm going to meditate, I'm going to sit down for 20 minutes and close my eyes, and I will rest my nervous system up to 5 times deeper than sleep, then the cascade of benefits that come from that means that was a good investment of 20 minutes rather than me sitting there scrolling through whatever, social or whatever, that isn't giving me that, So, I think it's when we say, oh, I don't have time for that, then we have to look at, well, what's the sustainability of how you're living your life, and very often we can just waste 20 minutes. They can just go really quickly.
Well, that's it, right? You just have to look at your phone time and how much, the embarrassing number. It's kind of
Yeah. And
confounds
I
it. But
think
I
the
guess,
other thing, Sam, I would say on that, and I hear
mm,
this a lot, is, and I certainly noticed this, is that when I invested the 20 minutes, my whole relationship to time changed. I always felt like I was chasing time, never had enough time. So consequently, my body was racing. Everything felt fast. But once I started meditating, I had more time. It felt like I had much more spaciousness because I was clearer. I didn't have to read that paragraph 3 times before it sunk in. I could just see something, do it, move on, not be kind of going over it in my head, you know, beating myself up about what I did or didn't do, you know, just doing it, getting on with it. And that freed up so much time. And that's what our students talk about a lot. You know, they'll say, I don't have time not to meditate, you know.
I like that. The other thing I think that I remember you saying to me was that it very quickly becomes positively reinforcing, i.e., you get almost immediate benefit. You don't have to wait
Yeah.
to some nebulous point in the future. And I can distinctly remember going home, I think it was day 2, and I was in such a good mood, and my mood was elevated in a way it hadn't been for months and months and months. I had my earpods in and there was music on, and I felt like I was in my own movie, little montage, skipping down the street. And it was really a moment that I captured in my head. This is how happy this is the level of happiness I can access just sitting down for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we aren't doing this when we seek to distract ourselves and to get pleasure from outside, when in fact we can access happiness and contentment on the inside at all times.
Yeah. I
So that's
think
the bit.
it's really good point. I think it's, you know, what is everybody doing? Quite legitimately, they're chasing happiness. That's honorable. That's our basic human driver. We all want to be happy. We all want to be fulfilled. As you say, it's just a question of, well, where are you looking for that? And you know, when we're constantly looking for the things out there and the people out there and the events and the architecture and the digits in the bank account or whatever it is, that's going to make me happy, you know, when actually what we find is it's like chasing a shadow. You know, you get, you know, the new job, and then you want the next thing,
Sure.
or you get the new, you know, and then you want the next thing. And so it's a never ending cycle. So where is fulfillment? Well, actually, as you say, it's an inside job. We have to go inward. And then when we get it and we sustain that, we touch that every time we meditate, and we come out and we bring that out. And then you are bouncing down the road, bopping away. And it's a self-referral experience. You know, that's happening within. It's not something that you're having to kind of acquire.
So for those who aren't familiar with Vedic meditation, how would you describe it in the most simple terms?
It is a simple, natural technique that involves sitting in a chair with the eyes closed for 20 minutes twice a day, and sitting comfortably with back support. And when you sit down and close the eyes to meditate, you are thinking a sound, which we call a mantra. And that mantra, that sound, has been chosen by the teacher for you. So it has a vibratory quality that's relevant and appropriate for you. Our job is to be able to allocate the right mantra to the individual. And so I sit down, I close the eyes, and I think my mantra. And what happens is that the mantra has this very interesting quality that when you think it in the mind silently, I'm not sitting there on the tube chanting, I'm just sitting there thinking my mantra, it starts to automatically and spontaneously soften and become fainter and fainter and fainter and fainter. And the mind, it's like a vehicle for the mind. The mind jumps onto it, and the mind drops into these super subtle layers of cognition very fast. What happens is that the mantra disappears, the mind falls mute, and the body is in a state of deep, deep rest. Now, what happens, as you know from your practice of meditation, is that the brain gets sort of activated, and we bump back up into thinking, and we come back to the mantra, and the process continues. So there's no concentration. There's no, oh my God, I mustn't think, try not to think, you know, because now I'm thinking about not thinking, and then, you know, I'm in a tizzy about that and end up more wound up. This is not mindfulness. This is very different. I'm not trying to be present moment awareness oriented. I'm simply allowing the mind to de-excite. And as is the mind, so is the body. And you know this from your work, and so much of what you see, you know, when there might be something that's happening at the surface level, of course there are deeper layers to what is going on. And so when you settle down the mind, the body settles. And that's where the research is really compelling, because as I said, you're resting many times deeper than sleep. And when you rest 5 times deeper than sleep, you purify and normalize your nervous system. So that means you clear out the stress chemistry out of your system, you clear
Mm-hmm.
out fatigue, the body becomes less acidic. We're reducing the blood lactate, the lactic acid, which is, we don't want that in our system. That's a function of fight flight. The immune system is balanced. So all of these things are happening. The digestive system is not being compromised, and
Skin.
the brain is changing.
And skin as well. Like I do think, I mean, it's another thing where we know stress has a direct impact on skin barrier function, makes anybody with inflammatory skin, dermatoses, acne, eczema, you name it, rosacea, more prone to exacerbations. And I think also for particularly for my acne patients that tend to, they can't help themselves, they squeeze, they pick, etc. I find that I personally tend to use meditation almost as a tool to get my mind in a state where I can have better control of what I do next. If I'm procrastinating about a project, I will consciously meditate because it lowers that resistance to starting something. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if that's something that people commonly do, but for me, something I've recommended to patients is a way of, okay, you're going to feel the urge, you're going to just settle down, you meditate for 5-10 minutes, whatever it is. It's a way of just bringing yourself back under better control and focus.
yeah,
And that tends to have a sort of a stacking effect on other habits that you want to do or not do.
yeah. I think that's so true. And I think, you're never going to make your best decision when you're tired and stressed. And whether that's how you treat your skin, what you do with it, whether you fiddle with it or whatever, when you're wound up and not, feeling great, then of course we're going to do stuff which intellectually we might know, oh gosh, I shouldn't be doing that. But in that moment of stress reactivity, we either, you know, we'll overreact and we'll do something that's actually not helpful, or, fight or flee. The flee part is not run away, but actually to flee the present moment, and we become sort of paralyzed and frozen, and then we can't even take a step forward. Stress will work in both these ways. It's a
Mm,
binary response. So yeah, it really, there is no illness, there is no situation that is going to be improved by stress. It's just not going to help us. And certainly in my work, when I see people come with chronic conditions, whether that be digestive or skin or sleep or whatever, they notice a difference when they have that release valve of meditation in their life every day. Then that means that those situations, we're getting to the root cause. We're not just trying to do some sort of band-aid solution at the surface. We're getting to the fundamental reason about what is it that's causing that inflammation in the digestive tract or in the skin or wherever that may be. Yeah.
yeah. So, for those who say that they simply can't find the time, do you have any tips for how to get people to make this sort of small but so meaningful habit to work, irrespective of how busy they are? Like, say, busy mum dealing with kids coming in. How is busy mum meant to try to get her second meditation in at the end of the day?
I've just taught a very busy mum today.
Uh-huh.
And we were talking about the afternoon meditation. And so she was going to pick her kids up. And what she was going to do was go and park the car and just down a little side street. And she was going to sit and do her meditation before she went in to pick them up. So she'd factored in, oh, I'm going to, sit there. I put my sunnies on, I'm sitting in my car, and she was going to do her meditation and then go and pick the kids up, because like another day starts, your second day starts. And so that was her way of kind of adjusting. One of my other students, she was putting her children in front of a movie, and she was going to go in the other room and she was going to meditate. Now, of course, we don't just put our kids in front of movies all the time, but in order for her to get that meditation in, she's like, it's a no-brainer for me. I'll do that. And I'm fresh and ready to go. Then I'll get dinner going and away we go. So, there's a lot of flexibility. One of my other students, she was talking about the fact that when she's settling her little one down, she sits on the floor in the room while her little one is falling asleep and she does her meditation. And a little toddler just settles right down. And, so there's a lot of flexibility. This technique is for busy people. We're all busy. We've got lots going on. And it's like, well, how effective is all that busy? When all that busy just gets busy, frantic, then all we're doing is just exhausting ourselves. And then everything becomes harder. And then the body and the skin and our mood and all these things start to give us indicators that this is not sustainable.
Now we've had a comment from Karen, is lovely. Karen, hi Karen. I would love to master meditation. I tend to get wound up and I can't seem to shut my brain down. It's a practice, I guess, or I fall asleep. So for somebody who's struggled, I have to say that I struggled with other forms before you taught me how to use Vedic meditation, or something about focusing on the breath. And I think I'm somebody who tends to hold my breath a lot when I'm anxious. For me, that actually made me feel quite constricted. It made my mind race.
Yeah.
Actually, the mantra has been by far the easiest way for my brain just to chill out. And as you say, you quite quickly let go of it and then you just go into this lovely soft state. But what would you say to reassure Karen that
well, I think
doesn't mean she can't?
Yeah, I think, Karen, the message that I would say, and this is really important for you, is that it's not you. It's not that you can't meditate. I think many people have tried all sorts of things, whether it be focus on the breathing, focus on the breathing, focus on the candle flame, or right, I'm mindfully washing the dishes, I can feel the water, all those things involve effort. I mustn't think, I mustn't there, I got to focus on the breath, oh no, geez, I didn't put the laundry on. Oh, wait a minute, no, back to the breathing, it's like, and
So familiar.
it's like, well, then you come away from that feeling maybe a little bit more wound up than when you started, but also a sense of, gosh, I can't do this,
Yeah, the
and I was,
failure.
I'm a bit of a failure. God, maybe my mind is just too ADHD to do this, maybe I'm not cut out for meditation. And my message, Karen, is that's not the case. It's not you. It's about finding a technique that works with your mind rather than against it. Your mind is constantly looking for something that it perceives to be charming. And the mantra in Vedic meditation holds that promise for the mind. It is extremely charming. You think it, more subtle, more charming, more subtle, more charming. And so it's just like pulling the mind naturally, effortlessly. And so the whole thing happens automatically. And so then we're not fighting the mind. If you're doing something that feels like hard work, that is a sign that you're going against nature. And that is a sign that we need to kind of have another look at that, because anytime we go against nature, we're going to feel friction. So we need to work with the nature of the mind. Your mind is looking for something that it finds fascinating. That's the role of the mantra. And so for someone to sit there and say, right, I mustn't think, just think about it, it won't work. It won't work. And so, find something that will move you in a direction that will work with the nature of the mind rather than against it. That would be the thing. So please don't feel that it's you. And maybe it's as simple as taking a moment to really put some attention just easily on the breath, closing the eyes and inhaling 4 seconds, exhaling 6 seconds, just taking some time to really tune back into the body. There are some simple techniques that we can do where we come back into the body. Often when people are struggling to fall asleep, they'll be trying to do sort of all sorts of techniques in the mind. And I always say, come to the body, lie there and close the eyes and notice, where is there a sensation in the body that's most dominant in that moment? Because there will be one. It could be the legs feel jumpy. It could be that the chest feels a bit tight. allow your awareness to go to that sensation and just follow it as it moves around the body. And in doing so, you're actually facilitating some release of tension. And when the body can feel more settled, then the mind will settle. So there's, we don't want to resist. We want to actually pay attention to what our body, the signals that it's giving us.
Very wise. I use yoga
Yeah.
nidra YouTube videos sometimes to fall asleep. I find the body scan element of those does
Really
something
good.
similar, I imagine. Yeah, it's
Really
wonderful.
good. Our body has so much information for us, and whatever you resist persists. So, we don't want to ignore the body's talking to you in the language of sensation at all times. And tuning into that is very valuable. Yeah.
There's a wisdom, isn't there? I mean, as you say, we're often so distracted we don't pay attention to it, but it's there.
Yeah. And there's too much noise, there's too much excitation. We live in an age where everything's hot. The planet is hot, and people's minds are racing, everything's very active and busy.
Mm,
So we need an antidote to that. We need to turn the volume down. We need to know how to have an experience of being. Otherwise, we're just thinking, doing. And we're not human thinkings and we're not human doings. We're human beings. And what Vedic meditation does is takes us to that ground state of being. And that's an incredibly valuable tool to have in your life, because then you can really come back to who you are and turn the volume down on all that noise. It's like then, if it's so noisy, it's like a sort of all that static in an old transistor radio, you can't get a clear signal. Well, what meditation is doing is turning down getting rid of the static in the nervous system. Oh, so now I have some clarity. Now I can find myself moving forward and not being stuck or not going down the same dead end every time, because actually I can tune into what's going on.
I think so much of our way of being now in society is that doing is equivalent to being worthy, and that if you're not doing something and being productive and using your time constructively, that you're not as good as others. And I think that meditation really does help. It's the ultimate antidote really to all of that, the sort of need for more and hedonic treadmill and constantly getting better and pursuing things,
Yeah, I think
as
what
opposed to
we're learning is that work harder, focus more, be more
mm,
organized, do more, max, maximum. Actually, maximum doesn't work. Maximum's unsustainable. What we want is optimal. What's optimal? Well, optimal always involves balance. Nature is doing this in every 24-hour cycle. There's rest and there's activity. And we need to have that balance right in our own nervous system. And I think you're right. I think, there's the pendulum swings so far out into sort of frenetic, frantic kind of doing. What, I've witnessed in my own life and in my students is that you will get more done, and you will get it done better, and you will get it done more effectively when you take time to very efficiently rest. And rest gets a bad rap, but what I love about this technique of meditation is I can sit down for 20 minutes and rest deeper than a night's sleep. That's very efficient. Then I come out, not so I can sort of sit around and be a big mood maker, but actually so I can go out there and do stuff. The world needs you doing what it is that you can do. And to do that, you have to be well rested. It is the funding mechanism for everything that you do. So if you're tired, if you're strung out, then everything that you do after that is going to be undermined. So really important that we get that balance right.
you present a very compelling argument, Jillian. So tell us how, so somebody's watching the live today, how they either come and see you
Mhm.
to learn more about Vedic meditation, or if they don't live outside in London, what they would do next.
The first thing to do is to go to londonmeditationcentre.com. And there you can read a bit about it, but mainly what you can do is sign up for an introductory talk that you can do online. So you could live all over and you could sign up for that, and attend that free introductory talk. It will either be me or Michael, my partner, or both of us. And in 1 hour, we will tell you how this works and how we teach it and what all the science is. And you'll get to ask questions and hear other people's questions. And then you're in a position to say, yeah, you know what? This sounds really like something that resonates for me. And then you sign up for a course that's in person. We need to be molecule to molecule. It's over 4 days in a row, only 2 hours each day. And then you've got that tool for life. Once you've taken that course, then you have that self-sufficiency, and we're supporting you along the way. I always say learning to meditate is not an event, it's a journey, and we're with you on that journey. And there's lots of other things that we do to support you on the way. But the first thing is learn to do this, have this tool in your toolkit. And it's so fast, as you were saying earlier, Sam. I think it's such an important point. If I do something and then I have to wait 6 months before I see a result, like, who's going to do that every day, twice a day? The immediacy of this. And I can honestly say, hand on heart, I've never had anyone in the thousands of people that I've taught who hasn't noticed some little change or shift in those first 4 days. Maybe they feel really tired. That's an indicator that meditation's working, because all that fatigue is washing out. But like you had that little moment with, feeling that wave of happiness that just sort of bubbling up from nowhere, or actually from inside. There's some little moment. Oh, I feel calmer. Oh, I feel, I'm making eye contact more. Whatever it is,
Yes.
it's so, yeah, that's the way to get started. I also have a book, and people have been finding that that's a really good way to get a little bit more information. And that's called Why Meditate? Because it works. And that's also, I wrote that as a really accessible, easy read for people, because I think meditation books are often way too long and very dense, and that's not what I wanted. So it is, very easy to get into, and I think that's another place to start as well.
Now, one question, do you do any courses in the north, or is it only in London?
We're only in London. Yeah, we teach in various places. I just got back from teaching in Copenhagen. I've been teaching in LA. We do go out in different directions. Home base is London. So people will come in for the weekend. Often our courses will happen Thursday through Sunday, and people will just make a long weekend of it, come in for the first session on a Thursday evening, have a long weekend, and then go back on the Sunday. So, we try and structure it so that you can learn this precious knowledge and do it properly. I always say, don't muck around with something like this. Do it right, and it will set you up from then on.
For sure. I think there's definitely something in the 4 consecutive days. It made such a difference. And I think again, just to ignite the habit, to build the habit muscle. And I think, so much of that is just about planning and care. And then once you get going, you see the benefits, you start to sleep better. Your mood. I think you say little differences. For me, the differences were quite profound. And I really was so excited to have you on here, because I really do want as many people as possible to understand that this is a commitment that you, as you said, it really is a gift to yourself. So
that really pays back dividends in a big way, I think. And I think it's like what you do. You talk, you give people an experience of a product, and you give them the science and the understanding behind it. And with learning in this way, you learn on the first day, and then you get all of the understanding and the intellectual sort of theoretical knowledge. So then you have complete knowledge, and it's so important when we're learning this kind of technique.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me this evening, Jillian. I hope everyone learned a little bit about Vedic meditation. I hope it sparked interest, and hopefully you'll have some new attendees on your course.
Thank you for sharing your experience. I remember so clearly that course when you came along, and everybody was spaced out, and we had 2 meters apart and all of that. It seems so bizarre now, but it was. I could see it was a wonderful moment for you, and I'm thrilled to be able to share this. So thank you.
Perfect. All right, Jillian, have a lovely evening. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.